Good morning, everybody. Dan here from Headwaters Kayak. And up on top of my car, I have the Eddyline Sitka XT. That's not true. Eddyline Sitka LT and the Sitka XT today. Both these boats I've spent a ton of time in over the years. I went back and forth of what size fit me best, and I kind of settled on the XT. But that doesn't mean I don't fit the LT. And a lot of you have been asking me to compare these two. So I thought, finally got a break in the rain. Today's the day. I got them loaded up. Let's head to the water and test them both out. We're going to start with the Sitka XT because that's the boat I'm most familiar with. I've spent a ton of time in that in the past few years. I think I've mentioned it before, but took my ACA training in that. It's a boat I feel very comfortable in, but I do feel like it's always been a little big on me. I have to run hip pads on it to get it to fit snugly, but it's also comfortable for a full day out. So I'm going to start with that because it's familiar, and then I'm going to jump into LT. So here we have both boats side by side, and it's kind of fun to see because on the surface they look really similar, and then you look at the stats and it's only, you know, an inch here, an inch there, you know, 14.6 versus 15.3, so a little longer on the XT here. Width wise it's 23.5 on the Sitka LT, 24.5 on the XT, and then depth wise it's an inch deeper on the XT as well. 13.5 inches deep on the LT, 14.5 inches deep on the XT. But the real numbers you should think about in the cockpit, depth is important, yes, but the overall cockpit size grows significantly between these two boats. So we have 32 by 17 over here on the LT, and then 35 by 18.5. So a bit wider, the whole seat pan is wider, definitely longer, and then being deeper as well. It really gets you a lot of volume here underneath your thighs in this zone. Whereas the LT is a little bit more compact, a little bit more of a traditional touring sea kayak keyhole cockpit. This one is definitely deeper and bigger. I'll try to get in the boats and demonstrate that. As we look at the side profiles, you'll notice that the lines are identical. This is definitely a family of boats. If we had the ST next to it, you would notice those same exact lines. They were designed in CAD, basically shrunken down or scaled up to meet the needs of the customers. Reason number one why I love the XT is that right there. That cockpit is long, it's deep, very comfortable for my long legs. I have a 34-inch inseam, just for reference, and folding my long legs into this cockpit has always been very easy. One of the reasons why I love it. It's the first sunny day we've had in a while here, so it's really nice to get back out on the water, go for a paddle. Still chilly though. I'm rocking the pogies today. I don't know if you've ever seen me wear these. I don't wear them much, but when it's real cold, today we've got a little bit of wind. Thought I'd bring the pogies out. Basically, it's just like a little sleeve for your hand to fit in. You still get the grip of the paddle, which I really like. I don't love gloves because I feel like I lose some dexterity. So the pogies are a great way to go for me. I know I just reviewed this boat, so I won't go into too much detail, but speed-wise, it has a good glide, you know, for a 15-foot kayak. Super strong secondary edge. This boat loves to edge. All the Sitkas really have a very balanced profile. Cool, there's some sloughs back here that are normally not underwater, so we'll see if we can make our way back in here and check it out. One thing I love about winter paddling is it always feels like a little bit different place. One, there's never any people, but two, you can go explore places that you otherwise wouldn't be able to check out. So much wildlife in California right now. Everything flies here for winter. So as I look around, I'm seeing, I don't know, I think I've spotted 4 or 5 different species of duck already. Geese. It's also a popular spot for like river otters, beavers. Yeah, this is wild. This is normally all out of the water. I know I've said it before and I'll say it again. If you're looking for a boat to, you know, get into kayak touring, you want something that's responsive and edges well, easy to drive. The Sitka is really a great workhorse, do-it-all kayak. It's just very predictable, very forgiving. So if I was to describe the fit to you, I would say it's roomy, voluminous, and again, I'm gonna say 210, 6'2", 34-inch inseam. This boat fits me really well. The only thing that I like to adjust on this is I add hip pads because it is a pretty wide cockpit. And even though I'm tall and above 200 pounds, I still don't really fill out the butt compartment. So hip pads really allow me to connect to the boat better and make it feel more comfortable. The high knee position gives me like lots of room to move my legs around. I can straighten them out, I can stretch them out, I can get them up to stretch, which is important for me after a long day. I just don't have the flexibility that I used to, and I need to be able to move around in a boat. So I'm curious how it's gonna feel in the LT, because I know it is significantly smaller. I'm thinking a whole inch down on my thighs will probably feel significant. Another thing I didn't mention in the last video, but these seats have sliders so you can adjust the position forward and backwards. Typically, I scoot my seat almost all the way forward. I'm about an inch from being all the way forward. And the reason for that is, one, the thigh braces get deeper, and I like my knees to be out deeper into the thigh braces. The brace being further back on my quad gives me a good connection to the boat. But also it allows me to have a little bit higher knee position. See, I've got plenty of room for my feet. These are size 12, and I still have a bit of room to move around. Nice bend in my knee here. So overall, very comfortable cockpit fit for my size. All right. Now we're gonna check out the LT. And I'm looking at this cockpit, it feels, are you sure it's not an ST? No, it feels small compared to what I'm used to being in. And again, I can do it, but just a little tighter getting in. I'm not hitting my shins, but it's just more of a performance fit. But man, I get in here and it feels like locked in. You're in a fighter cockpit. Every piece of my body is touching the boat. No hip pads needed. My butt's being snugged. My backrest is there, engaging good posture. My knees are locked in. No padding needed for me in this boat. It actually feels really cool. I'm gonna play with the seat position here. Oh, that's even better. So slightly forward gives me a little bit more thigh support. But yeah, it actually feels really comfy. First thing I notice is I feel like I sit up just a touch taller. And I don't know if it's just because the boat's narrower, or maybe the seat sits up a touch higher, but it just feels like, ooh, okay, this one's a little more tender. It's still, still stable. It still has that strong secondary that's familiar. Wow. I just think about weighting my right butt cheek in the boat carves a turn. That's cool. I guess in the XT, I feel like I'm engaging, pulling my knee up, dropping my hip. It's more work to get it there to the edge. Whereas this one, I'm so connected to it that I just look and the boat starts to make a turn. That's awesome. Let's get one of these. It's not necessarily a sharper turning kayak. I don't feel like it's higher performance. I just feel like it's less effort to get there. Just by weighting one hip or the other. So in some ways, I would say that equates to a little bit less stability, but it still feels pretty darn stable to me. So, people ask all the time about stability in the comments, and there's just really no way for me to answer that for you, because my stability is not your stability. My athleticism is not your athleticism. Stability is just such a relative thing. It's different for everyone. Some people will say the coffee's strong. Some people will say it's not strong enough. Stability is that way. It's my happy spot on stability is not yours. And as you paddle, your stability profile is going to change. What's unstable today is going to be really stable, in a year from now. That's why it's important to demo boats. And I will say, your first demo is going to be the most unstable you are in a boat. So if you're like, oh, I'm pretty good at this, but it's a little twitchy, chances are in 3 months time, if you paddle, it's going to feel fine. You're going to feel confident. You're going to feel stable. So I would go more on how does the boat fit you? How did it feel after a half hour paddling? How easy is it to lift and move around off the water? How well does it respond to your body English? Things like that. That's what you should be looking for when you go demo. Not necessarily what's the most stable. I don't know if you notice this about me or not, but pretty much whatever boat I'm in, I like. Not always, but for the most part. And I really think it's because I'm having such a good time being out here and feel so lucky to call this a job. It's hard to not see the beauty in whatever boat you're paddling, you know? Because it's more about where the boat takes you, the access it gives you to the outdoors. That's what makes kayaking special, not necessarily the kayak itself. All right, I got a nice quartering wind. I don't even know if you guys can hear me or not. Wind's coming at me this way. And what's wanting to happen is my boat's wanting to turn upwind, so I could just drop, give it a touch of skag. There you go, wait till it kind of neutralizes itself out. Now I can continue to paddle crossways through the wind without having to stroke harder on one side or the other. Oftentimes people think the skag on these boats is supposed to be down all the time to help you go straight. That's really not it. It's there to help you combat the wind. If I was going downwind, I would run the skag all the way down, so straight tracking. If I'm going upwind, I'd run the skag all the way up, so I can have maneuverability to position my boat. And then a crosswind like this, that's exactly what I do. I pick the direction I want to go. If the skag's all the way up, my boat's going to want to turn upwind. That's called weathercocking. If my skag's all the way down, it's going to want to turn me downwind. That's called lee cocking. And so what I do is I find that happy medium where the boat's not wanting to round up, not wanting to round down, and now I can just paddle straight. And that's why I like a retractable skag. You know, some boats come with a built-in skag, like the Equinox, the Skylark. Those are built-in hard keel. Some boats will have a rudder. Rudders are nice because it gives you another ability to control the boat, but your rudder is always in the water, and that has some drawbacks too. The skag is the only one I know where you can really dial in the performance and the tracking of the boat just by that little fin, and it really has minimal effect on the overall kayak. It'll just make it go straighter. So on both my Sitkas, I'm running the back rest, which is very comfortable, but it doesn't allow a whole lot of backwards mobility for me to like do layback rolls or things like that. It's there to help engage good posture. On my old LT, I did switch out to a back band, which I really liked on that boat. It allowed me to kind of use it like more of a performance kayak, even though it's still a little bit on the recreational side of things. To show you guys inside here. So here's the look of my feet in here. A little bit less room. My feet are splayed out to the side, which is typically how I paddle anyway. If I were to put my feet up straight, they would be rubbing. But most people in a kayak will have their feet like this, splayed out so your knees can be pressed up against the cockpit on the sidewall. You can see I have a bend in my leg, but a little bit less than on the XT. You know, that inch difference definitely changes the comfort level. The seat I have slid a touch further back. That's just where, if I went any more forward, this would be too far back on me. And then getting my knees in and out. Not as much room as the XT, but I'm not scraping my shin. I still have quite a bit of room up there. Definitely not getting them both out at the same time. It's definitely one at a time as I'm getting out. So the pros to this cockpit is I'm locked in. I feel like a fighter pilot. When I'm in the boat, every body motion I put in directs the boat, drives the boat. It's very high performance and fun. The downside is if I'm getting in and out doing rescues or stopping at a lot of beaches and things like that, it's not as forgiving as the XT over there. Also, just being this locked into the boat, if I was on a 4-hour paddle, I would have to get out of this boat and stretch. Whereas this one, I can stretch those times out a little longer before my hips start barking at me and saying, hey, it's time to move. So now I'm getting out. I think we gotta try it again. That was pretty bad. It wasn't as graceful. Again, getting in, my hips drop into the boat, but it's snug. One leg, two leg, and I'm in. Really not that bad. In a sea kayak, I typically do this while I'm floating just because I think it's the easiest way to do it. One leg out, other leg out, and then I'll pick my butt up. Doable, it's just not quite as easy. Let's try it in the XT. Alright, so for me, the XT, See, now I get into this boat and it feels hollowed out. It feels like, oh, I need to scoot the seat forward and pad it out and get it lower. It's funny how that goes. I don't know what to say. I think I like the fit of the LT better, honestly. If my body could hold up longer in it, or if it had this size cockpit, you got to make some choices. I made the choice to paddle the XT and just pad it out to make it a little smaller. But boy, LT is fun. And when you get in it, you feel like you're in a fighter cockpit. Like you feel like you're in a performance, like, I don't know, Porsche or BMW or something. Not that I would know how that feels, but. Now, as far as getting out of the XT, comparing it, I mean, it's just way easier. It feels more like a recreational cockpit that I can lock into, as opposed to the LT, which feels like a performance cockpit that you're one with. You know, when I go sea kayaking, I'm in a more of a fit like the LT. I want to be connected to the boat. I want to be locked in. I want to feel that fighter cockpit because I'm doing high performance stuff. The XT is the boat that I paddle most of the time when I'm kind of using it like a recreational touring boat. I'm going out covering miles, hopping in and out, picnicking. So I still think I would go with the XT, but if it was just based on performance alone, I would go LT. So you got to make that decision. I don't know. I'm lucky. I get to paddle both. If I had to take one and keep it as my forever boat, it would be the XT, because I'm not getting any younger. I'm not getting any more flexible, at least at this stage. And the XT is just a more comfortable fit. Again, you guys, I can't say it enough. There's no substitute for demoing these boats for yourself, hopping in and out. Even me just doing that was kind of eye-opening. Like, maybe I want to spend more time in that LT and really kind of like see what this boat's capable of. You should do the same. You should find a demo center near you. You should hop in some boats. You should compare, contrast. If you need help finding a good shop that does this sort of thing, do me a favor, reach out, leave it in the comments. If you're on the West Coast, that's where I've worked with Eddyline. I know all the dealers. We've got some great dealers. Thank you guys for paddling with me. Hopefully we had fun playing Goldilocks and trying these two Sitkas out side by side. If you have any more questions, leave them below in the comments. I'll do my best to get back to you. And what do you guys want to see me compare next? Leave those in the comments too. Until next time, this is Dan wishing you happy paddling. We'll see you on the water.